Hi everybody, this is your instructor for the online Java 1 programming class. I am making this video for the chapter 3. So under the modules area of our canvas, you can see we have different weeks and we have week 1, week 2, week 3. So during week 2 and 3, you are doing the chapter 1 and I have made some video lectures that you can use to enhance your learning on week chapter 1. For the week 4 and 5 I made the lecture for video lecture for chapter 2, and so is the case that I'm doing for the week 6 and 7 where you have chapter 3. So there are some publisher provided videos that you can find here, but in order to enhance your learning I'm making a video for chapter 3 and which will help you with doing the quiz and the assignment for this chapter. So here's the chapter 3. We are starting with the objectives. You are going to learn about the classes, objects, methods, and strings. These are the fundamental concepts when it comes to Java programming language, or for that matter any object-oriented programming language. Any programmer who is learning the object-oriented programming and is particularly using Java should know about what is a class, what is an object, what is a method, and the string. So there are a bunch of stuff that we'll be learning around these topics, primarily about the first three. So let's get started. We will go to the first portion in our chapter 2. You learn about system.out. You learn how you can use println and print format or printf. You also learn about scanner, which can be used to get information from the user. So we will want to continue on with that discussion, but in a little more detail about how we can use classes and how we can store information. So let's continue on with that topic. What is instance variable, what is set method, and get method? So we went over this account class last time as well, as you saw in the previous section. We went over the account class, which is a real situation one can think about, whereby if you have an account, you want to know the name for who has this account, whose account is this, and to whom this account belongs to. So what we do is, think about a bank and they want to create accounts for many of its customers. So the account is a noun. It's going to represent an account for account class, which would represent the information that the bank want to capture. Okay, so if bank has 10 customers, we can instantiate this account and create 10 instances of this account class to store the underlying information. So here we have a public class account. The public is an access identifier. We'll be learning it later, but public allows us to use this class from another class. Okay, in a nutshell, what do we have here? We are going to say that whenever we have an account class, we will have a variable we will store with that account, and the name of the variable is name. The type is string and it's a private, so you can't directly access it from another class. Okay, in order to set a value, we always create what we call a setter method, and to get the value we always create a method called a getter method. So you always have a setter and a getter. Okay, the set name is to set the value for this a class level variable, and it is a public method, so anybody can call it. It does not return a value, therefore the word void is used. But hey, it takes an argument, it takes a parameter. So it takes something called string, and the name is name. When somebody calls this, we'll use this incoming parameter and use this dot name. This dot name is nothing but a reference to this line number 6. Okay, so we are saying that in order to set the value for this private name attribute, we are going to call it this dot name and set it to the incoming value. We will see shortly how it is used. Similarly, if you want to get the value for this name instance variable or class level variable, call this function or a method called getName. What does it do? It's a public one, so any other class can call it. And this method returns a string. And what does it return? It uses the word return, return, and it gives the value this name, or we can also call it this dot name, okay, if it makes help. So this is an example of a class account which has only one variable, instance level variable called name. We have a public set name and a public get name. The set name doesn't return anything, therefore it uses the word void, and we are not obliged to have the line return within the curly braces for this particular method. On the contrary, the get name doesn't take an argument, but it returns something which should be of type string, and therefore we must write a keyword return and supply something to it. So in this case, we are saying, hey, this is going to give you the value of the name attribute or the name variable for this class. Okay, and how do you declare a class? You declare it by using public, class, and account. As I mentioned briefly earlier, the keyword public is called access identifier, and you have much more detail in the chapter 8. Now, how are we going to use it? Hey, this doesn't have public static void main, right? I mean, how are we going to use it? We are going to use it by calling another class, by creating another class which will call this class, which will use this class, and utilize the set name and the get name method to set the value for the name attribute, name variable, and get name to get the value from this. So we are going to create another one called account test, which would call this, okay, as I was telling you earlier. Whenever you are naming your class, or whenever you are naming a variable or a method, always attempt to use the camel case. So whereby if you have a class you are creating called account test, make the A capital and make the T capital, so it's easy to read, and you can also convey the meaning of this. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the set name is a public class. It sets the value to the class level variable called name by utilizing the name attribute that is supplied as an argument to this particular. Now, this name could be anything. Do not get confused that what is going on here. You know, if I call this TEST, then this here I need to call it TEST to say, hey, I'm getting a name, a value in a variable called test, and I'm using it to set the value for my instance level variable. Okay. The get one, I've already explained to you how it works. So we'll create another class called account test, which is going to look like this. So here we have import statement, because we are using this class called scanner, which is part of java.util package. So we need to write this one line and saying, hey, the JDK, the Java Development Kit, which is provided as part of the Java libraries, has a bunch of classes which we can use for many of the operations, and therefore we don't have to start from scratch, you know, and we are going to use it. So this is the public class because we are going to use it, you know, we are going to run it. We need to call it public. If it is private, then we will not be able to use it, okay? And we are giving it a name account test. So it has a public static void main, which takes the standard argument, which we don't really use right now in our work, but this is a signature, so we will stick to that. And here we are declaring instance of the scanner class. So the scanner class is not a primitive data type, it's a reference data type. So we are saying I would like to have an instance of scanner class which I would use to get some information from my user, the person who is running the code. And similarly, we are going to say, hey, in my project, I have another class called account, and I'm creating an instance of my account class, giving it a name, my account. I do that by using the word new, writing the name of my class and putting an open close parenthesis. This is called creating an instance of a class. So we are going to create an instance of a class. So if we consider noun, you know, person is a noun. Every person has a name, date of birth, and SSN number, right? So if we create an instance for Ashish, then that instance of the person class will be a person, which is Ashish, and Ashish will have a unique name, a unique SSN, and a unique date of birth. Okay, so we are creating an instance of the class account, calling it my account, and we are saying, hey, system.out.printf initial name is, and we are displaying the name from the my account.getName. We haven't set it, so you know what will happen? It'll return null, null. That means it's saying that this variable that is supplied back by the get name has nothing. It's null. Okay, nothing is not, or quotation mark followed by another quotation mark is not null. It's an empty string, but this is going to send us a response back saying the initial name is null. Now we are asking the user, please enter the name, and the user will enter something in a line. Say, for instance, it's Ashish Pagare. Then we are saying, hey, I have my account class, which is my account. I'm going to use the set name and send this the name to it. So what this would do, this will set the name instance variable with whatever name is sent by the user on the command line. And after that, we are going to display a blank line just to make a good display. And then we are going to say the name in the object my account is, and it will use the same get name which we use right above here. But initially, before we have not set anything, it was null. But in this case, whatever we set will come. So here are the output that will come. Initial name is null. Please enter the name, and the user enters Jane Green. The name in a object my account is Jane Green. There we go. Okay, which is what is explained here. We are utilizing the new word to create an instance of our own class. We are creating an instance, an object of our account class to say this is just one of the objects, okay? And setting the value for it and getting the value for it using the set name and get name, okay? Kindly read through it so you can better understand this. When you execute and run, we don't generally compile on a command line, because when we are using Eclipse, we can do it very fast by utilizing the Eclipse functionality, something like this. So here is my Eclipse. I can go and create a class. Say, for example, I'm creating a class called account. So in this, I do not want public static void main. I just finish it. And here we go. Now I also want another one which is called account test. In this account test, I do want a public static void main because I'll be using the other one. So in this one, I'm going to say, hey, account, there you have it. I just want to have a simple variable which is going to be a private string name like this, okay? And then I'm going to say public void set name, and I'm going to say this is incoming name, okay, for example, so as to not confuse you with what was given in the book. And then we have a public string get name, which just going to return this dot return this dot name with a semicolon. All right, and it shall come momentarily. And in the set name, we are going to say this dot name is equal to incoming name. So this probably help clarify what was probably somewhat confusing, you know, and we have done it, everything that we needed. In here we are going to use the scanner, so we'll say import java.util.scanner, okay, because we'll be asking the user to enter some information. And what are we going to do here? We are going to say let us create an instance of account class. So we'll say account my account is equal to new account. The new word is a way to create an instance. Similarly, we are going to say scanner my scanner is equal to new scanner, and we are going to say system.in, right? This is the input stream that we'll be using to get the information from our user. Wonderful. Now we are going to just say print system.out.print enter a name, right? So our user knows that we are asking for him or her to enter a name, right? And as you can see in the textbook, we are asking the user to enter the name, and we are asking the user to use the input line. So we'll just say, hey, the information that I'm going to get will be stored in a name. So I'll say string user enter name is equal to my scanner dot next line, okay, which is right here, and a semicolon. So user will enter something, and then what we'll do is we'll say my account dot set name, and what are we going to supply? The user entered name, right? So we are going to say whatever the user has entered, we are going to send it in, and then we are going to say system.out.println print the name in associated with my account is, we'll do that, and then we'll just say system.out.println my account dot get name. All right, we are calling the method which is the get name, and you can see here we are creating an account. Now this new is creating an instance of a class which is called a constructor. Okay, so if we run it, you will see that it will run and it will say enter a name, and let's just say I entered Ashish Pagare and press enter, and then it displays the name associated with my account is Ashish Pagare, and there you have it. Now when I click this green check mark, how come this ran? Because it has the public static void main. How come I could use the word account without doing anything? Because they are both part of the same project, they are part of the package, and the account class happens to be a public class. If it were to be not a public class, then we cannot write what we have written. They are kind of part of a family. Okay, this is what we have done. So let's continue on with our lecture here. And the key portion here is when we are using this account test, we are creating an instance of a class. This is called creating an object from my account class. Okay, when I run it, I enter Ashish Pagare. When you run it, you may enter your name, and therefore it will be a different object for each of us. All right. And when we create an instance of a class, we call it a constructor. We are using the constructor to create an instance of a class. Now, how come I could write like this? Is there a method called account? I know there is a method called get name. There is a method called set name. I can see here set name, get name, but there is nothing called account. How come this is working? Because that is the default constructor. You can create, if you have not created a constructor, the Java automatically creates a default constructor, which is the name of the class followed by an open and close parenthesis. This is going to help you as you answer the assignment for this chapter. So keep in mind, if you do not create a constructor explicitly, Java provides us with a default constructor to create an instance of the class by using the keyword new. All right, let's continue on. So we have learned how to do this. We entered the username and then it displayed the output. So if you are displaying the account class in a unified modeling language as a diagram, this is how you would do it. You will say the name is account. This is the instance level variable name, and it is of type string. There is a set name which takes a string parameter and a get name which returns a string parameter. See how it is inside the parenthesis, and this is colon sign and outside the parenthesis. So this is how you would display it. You know, in a professional organization where you have hundreds of classes, this is how you would draw a picture by using the conventions shown here, because this is a standard language used in all the companies where you are displaying relationship between your class to create a class diagram and stuff like that. Okay. Public static method main, we always use that in order to run our application. We talked about how we need to use import because we are using a Java JDK provided java.util.scanner class to get some input from our user. Okay. Whenever we have a private instance variable, just like we have a private variable called name, we need to have a set method and a get method in order to set the value to it and get the value out of it, because we cannot directly access the private variable. It will give us a compilation error. For example, if I just try to write here and say account.name, I cannot do it because that account.name is not possible. The field account.name is not visible. It is invisible because it is a private attribute, and private attributes are not accessible directly. Therefore, we created a public method called getName, which gives us the string value back from that private instance level variable, which I may also call it as attribute. Okay. So think about this as your instance variable name. You have a set method and a get method, setter and getter, to set the value and to get the value out. Okay. Let's continue on. We went over the information here. Now, what we have here in this example is, because we have not written a constructor, we didn't do anything. We have a method which sets it and a method which gets it. So therefore, there is no constructor, you know, and Java provides us with a constructor out of the box, which is a constructor, and you use it easily. Now there is another way whereby you can create a constructor. So this is what is given here. Pay close attention. These are the lines that we are talking about, specifically line number 7, 8, 9, 10. So we will create saying I am creating a constructor for my class, and the constructor has to be public. It will be void, and you will say account, and you're saying in order to call me you need to send me a name. Okay, and what I would do is I'll say this dot name is equal to incoming name. So this is how I'm going to use it and put in a semicolon. So this is a constructor. Now that I have created a constructor, we have to excuse me, we do not need to use the word void here. This is a constructor, and I have told that if anybody is using me, they have to call this constructor. So what has happened, if you see there is an X mark showing up in account test, because account test showing this is not possible, my friend, this is gone. So what do we do? In order to create an instance of the account class, we have to send in a string. We have to send in a string as follows. Okay, so if we were to change it, we are saying, hey, I'm sending in Ashish Pagare. Then I'm saying, let's check what is the value, which is going to be Ashish Pagare, because what am I doing inside this constructor? I'm taking that and supplying it to my instance variable. I'm saying whatever is the incoming name, I'm going to take it and put it into this name, and I can call it, you know, name sent by user or whatever, and I can keep it different so as to not confuse you all that why is Ashish using incoming name here as well as here. I can call it whatever I want. It's the baton that is supplied to me. I take it and I set it to my own class level instance variable. Okay, so if we run this code and we will see how it works. So let's say I run it and says name associated with my account is Ashish Pagare, because that is what I supplied, and now I need to supply another name. So let's just say I supplied John Doe, or John Doe. So what is going to come out? The name associated now is John Doe, because that's what I did. I created an instance by sending in a string variable which got set to my name, private instance variable, but then I asked the user to enter a name. He entered, or I entered, John Doe, and that's what got set because I'm using this set name, and then I'm displaying it back to the user, which is John Doe. So here we have a constructor being created for this class, which is different than what we did initially. Okay, and here we have this creating two instances of account class with Jane Green and John Blue, and therefore they are displaying the values without doing any other details. And what it would display, account 1 name is Jane Green, account 2 name is John Blue. So you have an ability to directly set the class level instance variable without getting any value from the user, without using set name, because the constructor itself requires you to send the value, and the constructor is created explicitly. It's not the default constructor provided by the JDK or Java. So this is the information I was talking about. When you do not have a constructor, you can use this kind of line to create an instance which is called default constructor. But if there is no default constructor, if there is a constructor created by you in your class, then you cannot use the default constructor. That's why the moment we added these 3 lines of code here, we got an X mark that, hey buddy, you cannot have whereby you don't supply anything. This is wrong. It will be a error. Okay. Now, when you have to display the constructor, this is how you display that this is going to be the constructor. So if you're working in a team of 100 people, somebody can see this and know how to use your code. Okay. Let's say we have more information we are capturing for each account. Rather than just name, we are also capturing a balance. So let's add that up. We will say, okay, I'm going to have another private variable which is going to be of type double. Double is a way to capture mathematical, numerical value. Please excuse me. And what we are saying is, when you're going to call me, you need to send in 2 values. You need to send in, the name and name balance sent by user. Okay, something like this. And what we'll do is we'll take the name sent by user to set it to the name class instance level variable, and the balance sent by user to set it to the balance. Now, because we have got private variable called double, we need to have a void method, set void method, to set the balance, and get method to get the balance. Okay, so we'll say incoming balance, open close parenthesis, and we will have another one called public void, public double get balance, and it's going to return this dot balance like this. Okay, remember what I said to you, you need to have a get method and a set method. Okay, we will see what is going on. We'll save it. Now the set one, what we want to do is we want to say if incoming balance is less than 0, then we will not do anything. We will keep it as it is. So let me just put it in the quotation, in the parenthesis, and use this, and we will say else this. So this dot balance is equal to incoming balance. Incoming is just a way of me saying that, if it is less than 0, then we are saying we are not going to do anything because that's what we are asked to do. Basically, let's just say you're working in an organization and you need to follow the what they are asking you to do. So this is what you are going to do. Okay. Similarly, in the constructor as well, you're saying if the value sent by the user is a negative, it's less than 0, then we are not going to save anything. We are just going to do like this. All right. And we have the public void balance, and let's just see what's happening here. Okay, this is saying insert assignment operator. What am I missing? Can anybody tell me? I'm missing the keyword return. In the process of me writing, I skipped that one little text. So here we have a set method and a get method. The get just gives you back, but when it's setting up, we are setting it only when it is a positive value, or is it a 0. We are not saying the balance, we are saying that the balance can never be negative. Similarly, in the constructor, we have two incoming parameters. The one is to set the name and another one is to set the balance. Okay, depending on the criteria, that if it is less than 0, we don't do nothing, we don't do anything. If it is 0 or higher, then only we set it to our class level balance instance attribute. So here we are having, hey, you can't use it because now your constructor calls for different information. So we are saying okay, and what we'll do is, in order to simplify, my dear friends, I'm going to erase all this stuff and just show you how it will work. So we are displaying the name, and then what we'll do is we'll say system dot out dot println, or print the balance associated with my account is, and we are going to put a semicolon, and we are going to say system dot out dot println my account. Mind you, Java is a case sensitive language, so one must be very careful with writing the proper case, as you can see here. Now when we run it, we don't need this because we have got rid of it, and it is going to run like this: Ashish Bagare, and the balance is 10. So we are creating a constructor, giving the values directly to the constructor, and we are just displaying what is the balance, the name associated with account, and the balance associated with the account. Okay, this is what's happening. It's just gradually getting to a little more complex, but it is pretty much the same. And this is what they are doing. I did a slightly different way than what's in the book here. So I explained to you all this, how we are setting the values, and if you were to send in a negative value, obviously it will come out as 0, because when you declare a variable of type double, which is a primitive data type, then JDK will give a default value of 0. All right. Now, the UML diagram will be like this. You have two instance level variables. You have get and set method, and here they are using deposit rather than saying set balance. You're saying if you deposit something, then we are going to increase the value in your when you're depositing something, the balance will become the original balance plus the new deposit. So if you had $100 and you're depositing $10, the balance will be 100 plus 10, which will be 110. Slightly different logic than what I was coding in my Eclipse environment, but it should be fairly simple and intuitive in relation to what you're seeing here. I talked about primitive types, which are, byte, character, short, int, long, float, and double. And whenever you are using the new to create an instance of another class, then that is what we call a reference data type. So creating an account object is creating a reference data type for a class called account. Creating a scanner instance by the name input is nothing but creating a reference to another object, okay, another point in memory. Okay, In this chapter, the 3.6 section is optional. We are not doing the Java FX. We are just doing more of an Eclipse environment. So I'm going to skip it. If you are interested in building a little user interface in Java, you may go through it. But this is not very important with regard to the concepts and the syllabus for our class. Therefore, I'm skipping it. You are welcome to ponder upon it and look through it. If you have questions, I'm here to help you. We pretty much completed this chapter. You have a few exercises that you need to do as given in the assignment. So the quiz will be in line with what you have covered. 3.5, 3.6, 3.12. So let me go through it. 3.5 exercise is about what's the purpose of the keyword new? Explain what happens when you use it. So I don't want to disclose the answer, but a new is used to create an instance of a class, and it's used along with the constructor, right? Now the question number 3.6 is, what is a default constructor? How are an object's instance variable initialized if a class has only a default constructor? So if you have watched the video, look at what I did with the account class when we did not have a constructor and we were creating we were creating an instance of that account class by using default constructor, right? Default constructor means what JDK provides, not what you have written. So in my Eclipse environment, I have this constructor, and so this is something Ashish has created. This is not default constructor, right? When I did not have it, how were we setting the value for the name? We were using a set method and a get method. Why? Because it's a private attribute. We must have public methods to set and get the value, the value to the instance variable and get the value from the private instance variable when you uh, only have a default constructor. So think about it and write in your own words. Exercise 3.12, create an invoice class. Have four pieces of information for this invoice class: a string as part number, part description, string quantity, which is integer, and the price. So you're talking about four attributes, okay? Not one, not two, but four. So we have a class which contains two attributes. So this is account, you cannot change it here, but you can create a similar class and you can call it invoice. Okay, now this is not going to have a public static void main. You will have another class which is going to be to run it. So you will have another class which will be called invoice test. Why? Because this is given in the assignment, and you will have a public static void main, just like how we did. Now what's going to be in the invoice class? Somewhat similar to this one. So let me just sort of take it, for example, put it in the invoice class in between, and we can sort of override it, right? So this is invoice, and obviously the constructor will be called invoice because that's the name we use. And what are we going to have? Four things. We are going to have part number. So we are going to have part number, one thing. Then we are going to have private string, part description. Why? Because that's what it says. Part number, part description, quantity, which is integer. So we'll have int quantity and not a balance. All right, how much quantity we have, and then the last one will be the price. So we'll have private double price. You may use capital letters, small letters, it shall not make any difference. Now most of what I have copied kind of have gotten haywire, so you might just say, hey, I'm going to start afresh and I'm going to just do it nice and slowly. They are all private. Java is a case sensitive programming language, so make sure you properly use the lowercase when it is required. For all these four, you need to have a public get method and a public set method. Okay, so let's just say I will say get part number. Okay, this is going to give us the value and it was going to return the string value. Okay, so it will say this dot part number, and then you will have a similar one which is going to set the value. So you'll have public void set part number, and it's going to take a string which would say, you can say incoming part number. Incoming means this is the value that is going to be sent, and we will use it to set the value to our part number. So we'll say part number is equal to incoming part number. Okay, like this. You're going to create a constructor as well. And here again, I missed what word? Return, remember? All right, so you're going to have this, and your class should have a constructor that initializes the 4-instance variable. Please do that. Provide a set and get method for each instance variable. I gave you an example of it, so hopefully that will give you. In addition, provide a method name get invoice. So this will calculate the invoice amount, that is multiplying the quantity by the price. So you are going to have a method by this name. So you should have a public method which will look like this. So public, it's going to return double because it's going to be a multiplication of integer with a double variable. So it will say return price multiplied by quantity. Now mind you, this is just partial code. I'm doing it to give you an idea. This is not 100% code, so please learn what it's doing and please work on it properly. This is exactly similar to the what I have done. It is exactly similar to what has been done for the account and the account test class in this chapter. Okay, similarly you also have to work on the assignment number 3.16, which is about target heart rate calculator. This is a very interesting, and you just have to create heart rate class and a heart rate test class. Or you may just put everything in heart rate. Just create a class called heart rates. You will capture the person's first name, last name, date of birth, and that's it. So date of birth will be month, day, and year as 3 integers. Okay. In order to calculate the heart rate, you need to subtract 220 minus your age in years. So you can calculate the age in years by taking the value from the year attribute. So say if somebody was born in year 2000, okay, so what would be the age for that person? 2018 minus 2000, so that will be 18, and you will subtract 18. Do not get into the complexity of I was born in November of 2000 or January of 2000, so my age is going to be different. Just calculate the person's age in years only. Okay, and how do I do the current year? You have multiple ways of doing that, but if you want to keep it extremely simple, just use the current year as 2018, if that helps you. Okay, because I am not going to be so concerned if you do not set the current year by some code or by taking the date calculation in mind. You can just say, okay, this is 2018 and I'm going to consider current year is 2018. So if I want to calculate somebody's age, I'm going to say, okay, if you were born in 2000, then the age will be 2018 number minus your age or your date of year of birth 2000, and therefore you will be 18 years old. This is very simple, extremely easy, very similar. If you come across any problem, I'm always here to help you. Hopefully this particular video has given you ideas and detail about chapter 3, some of the concept like classes, instances, methods and objects, and constructor and setter and getter method and stuff like that. If you're ever in doubt, reach out to me. I'm always here to help you. Thank you very much.